It's late at night. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, running the numbers again. Not because something went wrong. Nothing actually went wrong, but you keep doing it anyway. Mortgage, car payment, groceries, insurance. Trying to figure out if this is the month you finally get ahead, or just another month where you barely stay afloat. And deep down, you already know the answer. You've known it for a long time. But doing the math feels better than admitting the truth. That this might just be how life feels now. Now here's the strange part. There's someone living just a few houses away from you. Same neighborhood, similar house, roughly the same income. But last week, they just stopped working for a few days. No emergency, no permission. They just didn't feel like going in, so they didn't. And it's not because they're richer than you. It's because they're not playing the same game anymore. Today, we're going to talk about what really changes when one single thing disappears from your life. Not just your money, but your decisions, your stress, your future, and even how your brain works. Because when most people think about paying off their house, they think they're just removing a bill. What they don't realize is they're removing something much bigger, something that's been shaping their entire life without them noticing. Let's start with something simple. The average household brings home a certain amount every month. Sounds fine on paper, until you realize a massive portion of that income disappears instantly, just to keep a roof over your head, before food, before savings, before anything that actually improves your life. And here's the problem nobody talks about. When that much of your income is locked into one fixed payment, every decision you make starts to orbit around it. Every risk feels dangerous. Every opportunity gets filtered through one silent question. Can I still afford this if something goes wrong? That question quietly controls your life, your career choices, your stress levels, even how you think. Imagine a couple doing everything right. Decent income, stable jobs, no crazy spending. And yet, by the end of every month, there's barely anything left. Not because they're irresponsible, but because the structure of their expenses leaves no room to breathe. Now, here's where everything changes. The moment that biggest payment disappears, their life doesn't just get cheaper, it gets different. Because suddenly, that constant pressure is gone. And when pressure disappears, people start making completely different decisions. They take opportunities they would have ignored. They accept lower-paying work that actually matters to them. They finally try things they've been putting off for years, not because they became smarter overnight, but because the math changed. And when the math changes, your behavior follows. Now let's be clear about something. When that payment disappears, you don't magically become rich. You still have ongoing costs, taxes, insurance, maintenance. Those never go away. But here's the key difference. Instead of being locked into survival, you now have flexibility. And that flexibility is where everything starts to compound. Because if you redirect even a portion of that freed up money, consistently, over time, the results become almost ridiculous. Not from working harder, not from taking huge risks, but from finally giving your money space to grow. And this is the part most people miss. The real benefit isn't just financial, it's psychological. When people eliminate major debts, something measurable happens. Stress drops, decision-making improves, impulse behavior decreases. It's not just that they feel better, they actually perform better, think more clearly, make better long-term choices. Because for years, their brain was operating under constant pressure. And once that pressure disappears, everything sharpens. It's like background noise suddenly going silent, and you realize how loud it was the entire time. But here's something even more important. When your required monthly expenses drop, the amount of money you need to survive drops with it. And that number controls your freedom. Because if your lifestyle requires a high fixed income, you're stuck. You can't walk away. You can't experiment. You can't take risks. But if your baseline cost is lower, You gain options. And options are what create freedom, not income alone. Options. This is why two people earning the same amount can end up living completely different lives. One is locked in, the other has leverage. Now zoom out for a second. Most people don't reach this point early. Many carry large financial obligations far longer than they expected, sometimes even into the years they thought would be their most flexible. And that changes everything. Because instead of having freedom later in life, they're still managing the same pressure they've been carrying for decades. Quietly, consistently, without realizing how much it's shaping their decisions. So the real question becomes, what happens when that pressure disappears earlier, even a few years earlier? The answer is bigger than most people think, because it's not just about money, it's about time, it's about choices. It's about finally being able to decide what you want, instead of what your obligations require. So when that final payment is made, yes, you should handle the technical details. Make sure everything is properly cleared. Make sure ownership is fully yours. That part matters. But what matters more is what you do next. Because the biggest mistake people make is letting that freed up money quietly disappear into a more expensive lifestyle, instead of using it to build something, to create momentum, to actually move forward. Because once that door opens, you either step through it or slowly close it again without realizing. So here's the truth. That payment was never just a bill. It was a filter, a constant constraint sitting in the background, shaping nearly every decision you made. And when it's gone, that grip loosens. You're not suddenly wealthy, but for the first time. You're not being pulled in one direction anymore. You get to choose. And that change, more than anything else, is what actually transforms your life. Because the people who reach that point earliest aren't always the